In the wake of the events of the last 10 days or so, many in our society, from all political persuasions and none, are now concerned and frightened that the huge progress that we have made could be rolled back. And tonight I want to speak about that fear. And although we are gathered here tonight at the Sinn Féin election convention, I want to speak to more than just Republicans. I also want to address Unionist and Protestant people. Our society has witnessed remarkable changes since 1998 in all respects. We have witnessed changes that the naysayers and the prophets of doom told us were impossible. We have power share in government by parties with opposing political aspirations. And we have a political framework and arrangements which reflect the equal legitimacy of our different political aspirations. We have institutions at Stormont and a developing all-Ireland political architecture. And we have new policing and justice arrangements. And we have support for this from right across our community. And of course, none of this has come easy. And of course, we have much more to do. And maybe that is the big lesson of the past 10 days. We have still to grapple with and develop the principles or templates which will determine how we progress some very sensitive issues. How, for example, do we prioritise the big issue of equality? What exactly do we mean by mutual respect or parity of esteem for the different political traditions? How do we desegregate our society, heal divisions, and create a dynamic which will construct new human and political relationships between our communities? And these are awesome challenges, but none of us should be daunted by them. None of us should assume the role of the past naysayers or prophets of doom. We can address and we can progress all of these if we adopt the same confident willingness to embrace the process of change as an opportunity and a friend as we did 5, 10 or 16 years ago. We can address all of these if we show confident, positive leadership. But when we begin to meet these challenges, it must be on the basis of compromise, not the politics of zero-sum or winner takes all. It can only be on the basis of equality and the politics of mutual respect, which we clearly must now discuss. In the here and now, we need to reflect long and hard about what exactly the Good Friday Agreement provision on symbols and emblems means for each of us and how it challenges us to act. And however we construct the framework to address all of these issues, we need to be clear about one thing, and that is that there can be no going back. James Craig once described the 6 counties as a Protestant state and Stormont as a Protestant parliament. And a few days ago, a very senior Unionist politician described the place where we live, and I quote, "This is a Unionist country." Well, the days of Sir James Craig or Lord Craigavon are long gone. This is not a Unionist country. The current political reality links the 6 counties to Westminster. I understand that. As an Irish Republican, I am committed to changing that by purely peaceful and democratic means. Those who reside in the north of Ireland have mixed political identities and aspirations, all of which command respect and recognition. And Belfast City is a mirror of the process of change which has been shaping our wider society. It is a changed city from 10, 20, or indeed 50 years ago. Its ethos has changed, its demography has changed, its politics has changed, and it continues to change. The pace of change in Belfast has outgrown and left the old status quo far behind. And I am proud that we in Sinn Féin have played an important role in all of that. Belfast City Council's decision last week was a vote for compromise. It has been cast, or rather it has been miscast, as a victory for nationalists, as a victory for Sinn Féin. It was neither. Sinn Féin councillors proposed that there should be no flag flown. The council preferred the compromise proposal in favour of designated days. This decision was in line with the flags legislation brought forward by Peter Mandelson, which David Trimble from the Ulster Unionist Party commended many years ago. It was in line with the position of the Progressive Unionist Party. That is, up until a few short weeks ago. And it was also in line with the position adopted by Lisburn Council on designated days, which Unionists supported. And yet, suddenly, for no apparent reason, Unionists have set themselves against the designated days. The decision of Belfast City Council was the right decision. And although it was not the preferred option for Sinn Féin, my party accept and indeed respect that decision. Compromise favours no side, but benefits us all. We can all very easily agree or nod in the direction of equality. That's the easy bit. But an application of an equality agenda requires a recognition that equality challenges us all. And it begs positive and honest leadership. And I have to say, I am very disappointed that in response to the events of the past week, we have yet to see from some within sections of Unionism the honest leadership that we require. I am disappointed to say that we have seen a failure of leadership from some quarters, and only they can explain why. The protests and the attacks on the police, the City Hall staff, the Alliance Party and their family members, and on business were a disgrace and must be condemned. So too must we condemn the threats from whatever source against members of various political parties, including Sinn Féin and the Democratic Unionist Party, and I call for all of this to end. Belfast deserves better than this. We all deserve better than this. The Belfast Council discussion and decision on flags didn't fall out of the sky. It has been outworking in a manifest way for a very long period, and it was a democratic decision made by the elected representatives of the people the Council serves. But the response to this decision was far from democratic. It was violent, and it was orchestrated. And it was orchestrated in a very cynical way. Both the UVF and the UDA have played a significant role in this orchestration. Unionist leaders, for some reason or other, may now pretend otherwise. We have yet to hear a Unionist leader question the role of loyalist paramilitaries in all of this. And at this point, we can only speculate as to why that is the case, or how far this orchestration extended. Those responsible for this should now be told by Unionist leaders to bring it to an end. And just on my way here, I hear a report on the BBC website that John Dallett's office in the East area has been attacked in the course of the recent while. So I am conscious of the sensitivity of symbols and emblems, and I recognise that some Unionists have fears about what they may perceive as a dilution of their Britishness. And it may be that the recent census results, which point to gradual but significant demographic changes, will needlessly heighten further these fears. But we must also recognise that nationalists too have concerns about their Irishness. So let me say this very clearly. Paddy McGrory, a human rights lawyer from Belfast who passed away many years ago, once very famously described the nationalist experience in the north of Ireland as akin to living in an alien and hostile environment in their own land. So I grew up in that state. So did many generations of nationalists before me. We experienced in a very stark way the denial of human rights. We experienced first-hand institutionalised discrimination. Our cultural rights were systematically trampled on. We were denied democratic participation. And many nationalists in this constituency and elsewhere in the north will know exactly what I refer to. Many of them, just like Pat Finucane and his family, bore the brunt of state violence against them, aimed at defeating their demand for civil rights and justice. And many have borne the brunt of various British government attempts to suppress their sense of Irishness and the expression of their Irish identity. Republicans have no wish, desire or intent to visit any of that on unionism. Sir James Craig was also Lord Craigavon. I have crossed Craigavon Bridge, which was named after James Craig, nearly every day of my adult life. It lies in the heart of Derry City, the population of which is mainly nationalist and Republican. Nationalists have never sought to have the Craigavon Bridge renamed, nor do they seek the flying of the Irish national flag over the Guildhall. The identity and symbols of those who see themselves as British, yes, must be protected. I accept that, I support that, and I will commit to that. But so too must the identity and symbols of those who see themselves as Irish, and I commit to that also. Mutual respect is a two-way process. Parity of esteem has to be for everybody, and I challenge all our political leaders to make the same commitment as I. There are many other important issues beyond flags to address, and much bigger challenges up ahead. And it may be that we have some new thinking to do on all of these. Attempts to convene a meeting of the Assembly Commission yesterday to consider increasing the number of flag-flying days at Stormont suggests that some unionists have a distance to go to come up with new thinking. Unlike most other committees at Stormont, the Assembly Commission is not subject to cross-community voting. The clear intent in this was to impose a unionist position rather than to seek an agreed position. The Assembly Commission has responsibility for ensuring that the culture, identity and ethos and traditions of all who are represented there, of all who work there, and indeed all who visit there, are respected. It is not the place for political strokes. What we need now is a period of calm reflection. We need a calm discussion, not an attempt to outmanoeuvre each other. We need an examination of common ground, or the potential for common ground, and we need to be generous. But most of all, we need honest leadership. And hopefully in the coming days, we can begin the type of discussions with all the other political parties on this basis. And I'm confident that we can map a way forward in which everyone can have confidence. So I thought it was important just to deliver that message this evening in the context of the events of the last number of days. But I'm also conscious that today is a big news day as well. And it's a big news day for everybody who cares about truth and justice. And of course, the Finucane family have been fighting for truth and justice for a very, very long time. And it has been denied to them by successive British governments. I was part of the negotiations at Weston Park, a negotiation which committed the British government at that time to hold an independent public inquiry into the murder of Pat Finucane. That hasn't happened, and this British government, led by David Cameron, today have effectively reneged on that commitment. And it begs the question, why have they reneged on that commitment? And the answer is very, very clear as far as Irish nationalists and Irish Republicans are concerned. Because they're afraid of what a public, independent inquiry with an international dimension will bring out. During the course of the peace process, Jerry Adams and I used to travel without publicity every now and again, and it was usually on a Saturday, and we would go to London and we would go down to Chequers, where we would meet Tony Blair. And we had many conversations with Tony Blair about Irish history and our analysis of what was wrong in the north of Ireland, and how he, as British Prime Minister, had a huge responsibility to contribute to putting that right. And some of the conversations that we had with very senior people in the British government at that time during the course of those trips would make the hair stand on the back of your head. Because in those discussions, they privately acknowledged what they have never publicly acknowledged, that the British government, particularly under the leadership of Margaret Thatcher as British Prime Minister, who was the British Prime Minister at the time of the murder of Pat Finucane, of how they had sanctioned all sorts of manoeuvres and actions carried out by the British military on the basis that all was fair in war. And when people ask the question, who was involved in the killing of Pat Finucane, and we hear Brian Nelson's name, we hear Stobie's name, we hear an RUC man who has yet to be identified, named as someone who had put his name forward for assassination. We hear about the activities of MI5. Well, it just doesn't stop there. There is a political responsibility for what happened, not just to Pat Finucane, but indeed many, many other Catholics in the north of Ireland who were assassinated by loyalist death squads. So that's why there's no acceptance by this British government of the need for an independent international inquiry into the killing of Pat Finucane, because they're afraid of what will come out. That's the only reason they have not agreed to that inquiry. So we in Sinn Féin support the Finucanes. We support their campaign, and they have restated today on live television that they are going to continue with their campaign. They have huge support in the United States of America. The Irish government are committed to supporting them and disagree with the decision taken by the British government not to have an inquiry. And there is huge support in the European community as well. So that is a campaign that will continue, and that is a campaign which we are pledged to support. Gura míle, míle maith agam.